Vegetation gives you fuel.
Some people think that biofuels really suck. Biofuels worse than gasoline? Do they really know how bad gasoline is? When we go to the gas station to buy gasoline, we actually only pay half of the true cost of the gasoline. That's because the other half is given to the oil companies by our government in the form of hidden subsidies. But we pay for those too, with our taxes. Maybe that's why the US doesn't have any money for things like a national health care plan.
Vegetation gives you fuel.
The whole process of making gasoline is incredibly inefficient. For every 1 unit of energy that I put into making gasoline, I only get about 80% out. It actually takes more energy to make a gallon of gasoline than a gallon of gasoline contains. So what about biofuels? The two most common biofuels today are ethanol, made from corn, and biodiesel from soybeans. Ethanol is used for gasoline engines, and biodiesel is for diesel engines.
Our first generation biofuel was based on logic. These are agriculture products that we can subsidize. You can make corn-based ethanol. There's a big lobby behind it. And similarly, soy. You can make a good biodiesel from soy, and there's a big lobby behind it.
Most of the ethanol in the US is made from corn. And corn is grown in huge monocrop fields of tens or even hundreds of thousands of acres. To grow that corn takes a tremendous amount of fertilizers and pesticides, which all come from, you guessed it, oil. And when you factor in the phosphates, the nitrates, the fertilizers, the chemicals, the fuel used for the trucks, and the fuel used for the tractor, it takes as much energy to make a gallon of ethanol as a gallon of ethanol contains. So ethanol is arguably energy neutral. It's a little better than gasoline, but not when you consider the pollution.
Since the 1980s, in the Gulf of Mexico, there has developed a dead zone. And that dead zone is resulting from nitrogen flowing down the river from all of our corn production. This year, scientists are estimating it'll be the largest ever, about 8,500 square miles. That's the size of Massachusetts.
Ethanol from corn is grown by large corporations that often control the inputs for the crop, and they control the sale of the finished product. Because our agricultural corporations are subsidized to such a large degree, they're actually able to grow food at lower than world market prices. What this means is we overproduce food in the US by about 30%. That 30% extra food actually gets dumped onto the world market at prices lower than their farmers can grow the same food. So what happens in this system is farmers in other countries stop farming. They give up and quit, and they become locked into a cycle of dependence on cheap food from the US, which relies on cheap oil. Now, let's assume that our oil price doubles. In the US, that may mean that corn or a box of cornflakes goes up by 25%. But in countries overseas, that means that people starve.